For 37 years, one man, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, had this incredible vision to catapult an ancient nation right into the modern world. We're talking about the last Shah of Iran, and his story, wow. It's this stunning collision of massive ambition, incredible oil wealth, and ultimately an explosive revolution. And that brings us to the core mystery, really. How does a monarchy that's been around for 2,500 years, an institution that seemed as permanent as the mountains, just vanish? Like in the span of a few months? To even begin to understand that collapse, we've got to understand the man right at the center of it all. You see, he was never really supposed to be this all-powerful absolute ruler. His reign didn't kick off with some grand coronation. Nope, it started with his country under foreign occupation. Okay, so picture this. It's 1941, World War II is raging, and he's put on the throne while Allied forces are literally occupying his country. Fast forward to 1951, and his own prime minister, a guy named Mohammad Mossadegh, decides to nationalize Iran's oil industry, which, by the way, was controlled by the British. This causes a huge crisis. The Shah is actually forced to flee, and he's only put back on the throne by a coup in 1953, a coup engineered by the CIA and MI6. And that experience, well, it would define him forever. Yeah, that 1953 coup, it changed everything. It's like you can split his reign into two parts. Before 1953, he was a constitutional monarch. He had limits, he had to deal with parliament. But after being humiliated and then put back in power by foreign governments, he made a decision. He would never, ever be that weak again. And so, he seized absolute control. All right, so now he has absolute power. And what does he do with it? He launches this incredibly ambitious grand project to remake Iran in his own image. And he wanted to do it at a breathtaking speed. He called it the White Revolution. Why white? Because it was supposed to be bloodless. This whole thing kicked off in 1963. And look, this wasn't just a new set of policies. This was a shock to the entire system. He broke the power of these old feudal landlords, he gave women the right to vote, which was a direct challenge to the religious authorities, and he launched massive literacy campaigns. The goal was to create a brand new, modern Iranian citizen. And the results, at least on paper, were just mind-boggling. During his time on the throne, Iran's national income grew by a factor of 423. Let that sink in. This wasn't just regular growth, it was an absolute gusher of wealth. And it was fueled almost entirely by one thing: black gold, oil. And just to put that into perspective for you, for a while there, Iran's economy was growing faster than the economies of the United States, the UK, and France. A new educated middle class was starting to rise up in the cities. You could feel the country transforming almost week by week. And this was all part of his ultimate goal. He called it the Great Civilization. And that wasn't just some empty slogan for him. No, he truly believed he could make Iran a global superpower, a nation that could rival the West. And not in a few centuries. He wanted to do it in his own lifetime. But beneath that gleaming surface of new highways and shiny skyscrapers, some really deep cracks were starting to form. The sheer pace of all this change was alienating huge, powerful parts of society. And the methods he used to enforce his vision, well, they were creating some very powerful enemies. Yeah, this utopian vision had a very dark side. To enforce it, the Shah relied on an organization called Savak. This was his notorious secret police, and their job was brutally simple: crush all dissent. For so many Iranians, the name Savak just became a whisper, a byword for censorship, for surveillance, and for fear. And while all this was happening, a powerful voice of opposition started to emerge from exile. We're talking about Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. He completely reframed the Shah's project. He said this isn't modernization, it's poison. He called it a corrupting, anti-Islamic assault on the very soul of Iran. And for millions of more traditional Iranians, that message, it struck a very deep chord. The beginning of the end really started with just a single spark in 1978. An insulting newspaper article about Khomeini triggered protests. The Shah's security forces cracked down, firing on demonstrators and killing people. And this kicked off a powerful, tragic cycle that's rooted in Shia tradition. Every 40 days, the mourning ceremonies for the dead would turn into new, even larger protests, which led to more crackdowns and more people to mourn. This chain reaction just completely spiraled out of the government's control. By the end of 1978, the entire country was pretty much paralyzed. And the Shah, well, he seemed incapable of making a decisive move. And what most people didn't know was that he was also secretly battling cancer. The end, when it came very, very swiftly. So, on January 16th, 1979, the Shah left Iran for the very last time. And this newspaper headline, it's just two simple words in Persian, Shah Raft. But it captured this absolutely seismic shift. It just means the Shah's gone. For the millions of people celebrating in the streets, it signaled the absolute, irreversible end of 2,500 years of monarchy. So, what about his legacy today? Well, to put it mildly, it's contested. The current government in Iran, they portray him as a corrupt puppet of the West. Simple as that. But for others, especially Iranians living outside the country, he's still this major political reference point, a symbol of an era of secularism, national pride, and incredible economic progress, even if they acknowledge how flawed it all was. So, in the end, we're left with this massive question, aren't we? Was he a visionary modernizer who just moved too fast and lost touch with his own people? Or was he an out-of-touch despot whose entire project, built on authoritarian rule, was just destined to fail from the start? You know, the story of the last Shah is just one of those powerful lessons, a reminder of how complex and contradictory the forces of history can really be.